Welcome to Making the Case. I'm your host, Yodit Tewolde. A jury in Kenosha, Wisconsin has found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all charges in the shooting of 3 men, killing 2 and injuring a 3rd during a Black Lives Matter protest last year. The jury deliberated for more than 25 hours over the last 4 days, sorting through the evidence, which included testimony from more than 30 witnesses. And with today's verdict came strong reaction, ranging from outrage to cheers. Joining me now from outside the courthouse is BNC's Walter Morris. Hey, Walter, you've been there all day. What can you tell us about the moment that the verdict was read and what the scene looks like right now?
Well, it was a story of really 2 sort of thought processes, 2 ideologies going head to head. On one side, you really saw disappointment and defeat, and then on the other side, just exuberance. Now, of course, we've watched over the past few days, this community and really the whole country has been waiting to see what this verdict will be. And this afternoon, we got our answer. Kyle Rittenhouse is a free man tonight. So let's go to video. Check this out. We were standing by on the courthouse steps, just feet away from Jacob Blake's family as that verdict was read in court. Rittenhouse found not guilty on all 5 felony charges, including 2 for homicide. Rittenhouse was 17 years old in summer 2020 when he came here to Kenosha, Wisconsin with an assault rifle during protests to police shooting of Jacob Blake earlier that summer. Now, Rittenhouse killed 2 men and seriously injured another. In court, he claimed self-defense, and today we found out the jury agreed. I spoke with Jacob Blake's uncle moments after that verdict, and here's what he had to say. Right now,
we're not happy at all. We hope that they review it and come back at it. The feds have some things to do, so they'll take care of the business for us.
When we talked earlier, you had mentioned this will set a dangerous precedent. Can you elaborate on that now?
Well, this exposes African Americans and those who want to come out and protest and utilize their First Amendment rights.
And then, Bishop, for you, I mean, what message do you think this sends to the African Americans watching all over the country?
That we must mobilize and organize. We must use peace, protest, and civil disobedience to push our cause forward. The unintended consequence is we're going to turn our pain into power. We're going to register the vote. We're going to mobilize.
Back out here live, and right after that verdict was announced, the family of Anthony Huber releasing a statement that reads in part, today's verdict means there is no accountability for the person who murdered our son. Now, there has been a heavy police presence in the area really all week, but so far no major incidents to report. We've seen members of this community sort of now coming by, just walking, taking it all in and really breathing a sigh of relief now that that verdict has been announced. Reporting live in Kenosha, I'm Walter Morris for Making the Case.
Walter, thank you so very much, and please stand by as we continue to monitor the scene there in Kenosha. I want to bring in my legal experts, veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor, Paul Henderson, and criminal defense attorney Sue Ann Robinson. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Listen, the jury has spoken, and some of us don't like what we heard. Now, I want your reactions to the verdict, starting with you, Paul.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the legal analysis before my opinion, because I think the issue is, in this verdict, just a reminder that trial rulings like this are an imperfect as to issues that are raised, because they're so case specific to the facts and circumstance of each case. But this case in particular, and again, this is my legal analysis, on so many other issues, which is why everyone around the country was watching it. It implicates the right to bear arms, freedom of assembly, defense of property, and defense of others in the terms of defining or expanding the boundaries of 2 very important issues of vigilantism, and we'll unpack that separately, and self-defense in ways that I think are going to harm rulings in the future, so that rallies and protests in the future are that much less safe because of the implications from today's ruling. All of that and just what this ruling means in a small picture and from a bigger picture for this country.
Sue Ann.
I absolutely agree with what Paul has to say. I would just say I think that we're upset, and the people who don't agree with the verdict are just basically upset because we all know that if Kyle Rittenhouse was Jerome Rittenhouse, he would be under the jail right now. And that's the bottom line. It's more an issue of how he was treated by the police. Even on scene, he was given a water bottle, he was given a high five, he was welcomed with this very serious AR rifle. Whereas if he was Jerome, if he was Trayvon, he would not have been welcomed in that manner. And then how he was treated by the judge. He was treated so kindly by the court. And, you know, the state was basically demonized in the courtroom by Judge Schroeder. These are things that we are sitting here as a culture and saying, absolutely not how we would be treated. Even as to the Second Amendment, you know, the right to bear arms, it might be written in a race neutral way, but it's not applied race neutrally, because we all know that when African Americans are charged with gun charges, their sentences are disparately higher than white people with the exact same charges. And I think that we were looking for the judicial system to really answer a political question with respect to white vigilantism and the application of constitutional rights.
All right, let's talk about that moment where the verdict was read and the camera was on Kyle Rittenhouse. Thoughts on him damn near falling to the ground after being acquitted? Paul.
Okay, so clearly this was him receiving the news and having a sigh of relief, because he is not going to face the death penalty, which he wasn't. He is not going to have a life spent in prison. But to me, the sigh of relief, the joy, the breakdown of the crime, my immediate thoughts in that moment was the victims. Where is their moment? Because this was a loss for them. And we can talk about what their recourses are after this verdict. But in that moment, that's what I was thinking. Where is the justice and the justification for their fear, for their impression of what happened? Because we didn't get to hear their voices, and we didn't get to validate their justifiable fear from having a gun pointed at them, for their justifiable fear of being shot, their justifiable fear of dying because of their interaction with this individual that was just acquitted in today's court process. And, you know, I'm a prosecutor, so I'm always thinking about the vision, the voice, also the race of victims in cases, because I think, especially in a case like this, it actually matters. I'm so glad that we started introducing this concept of race in this case, because I think it's actually really important in all of the legal issues that we raise, because the outcomes, I believe, are different. And just to make that hypothetical more accurate and more clear, the actual hypothetical that we should be asking because of this ruling is what the situation would be if this were a juvenile, black juvenile, illegally carrying a gun to a protest for a cause that he didn't believe in. And then that juvenile felt scared, and in that fear ended up killing two other people, and let's make them white, and then injuring a third white person. Would we have had this same result? And asking that question leads us to some very difficult answers that I think raises issues about what the next steps are for advocacy for the entire criminal justice system.
Well, we know if he was black, he wouldn't have been acquitted if he even made it out alive to begin with. We can't forget, Paul, you did mention the families. We can't forget about the families of Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, the two men who Rittenhouse killed, as well as Gage Grosskreutz, the only survivor from the shooting. They were in the courtroom when the verdict was being read. Here's what Anthony Huber's family said. Here, we are heartbroken and angry that Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted in his criminal trial for the murder of our son, Anthony Huber. There was no justice today for Anthony or for Mr. Rittenhouse's other victims, Joseph Rosenbaum and Gage Grosskreutz. Today's verdict means there is no accountability for the person who murdered our son. It sends the unacceptable message that armed civilians can show up in any town, incite violence, and then use the danger they have created to justify shooting people in the street. And here's a statement from attorneys for Gage Grosskreutz and Joseph Rosenbaum. It says here, Anthony Huber and Joseph Rosenbaum did not deserve to die that night. They did not seek violence, but to end violence. While today's verdict may mean justice delayed, it will not mean justice denied. We are committed to uncovering the truth of that night and holding those responsible to account. Sue Ann, clearly there's no criminal recourse for the families, but what about civilly?
They can try to go after possibly the Kenosha Police Department, because certainly the way they acted on that night, they essentially were deputizing civilians to assist them. And that erodes their own integrity, obviously, by them, setting forth the notion that they can't control the protesters or they couldn't control the situation themselves. And therefore they were relying on people like Kyle Rittenhouse, who's 17 years old and obtained the gun illegally. I think the very important thing that we need to make sure that people of color understand is Kyle Rittenhouse actions, choices are not to be emulated by you. You're not to do that. Do not show up to any protest with weapons and expect that officers are going to give you a water bottle and a high five, or really no one should emulate his choices. And if you do, there's going to be a serious problem. I think the long-term implications of this remain to be seen, but it does put protesters, I think, in the future are going to be on edge.
All right, Paul, Sue Ann, please stay with me. After the break, we are going to be evaluating how lawyers on both sides made their cases and where things went wrong for the prosecution. Stay tuned. We're taking a deep dive into the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict tonight and trying to make sense of the jury's decision to acquit the defendant on all charges. I've got my legal experts still with me, veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson and criminal defense attorney Sue Ann Robinson. So there were a lot of players involved in this trial, a lot of moving parts that contributed to the jury's verdict, including the judge. So let's start with him. Many believe Judge Schroeder was biased towards the defense, starting with his controversial rulings, questionable comments, and his attitude towards the prosecution. Sue Ann, how much of a role did the judge play in today's verdict?
I think the judge played a huge role because he set the stage for what the jury would hear, what facts would come in, what information would come in, how it would come in. And I mean, even down to the fact that he allowed the fact that one of the victims had a mental health issue and had been being treated for a mental health issue to be discussed in front of the jury, to me, was a ruling that isn't widely discussed, but I'm sure had a huge impact on the jury in what their decision was in terms of thinking that, Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense, allowing the defense attorney to argue that Rosenbaum was crazy. I mean, he really set the stage for what the jury would hear. The jury are the judges of the facts, but it's the facts are let in by the judge. And so I just think the court had a demeanor against the state from the very beginning, and it was very evident to all of us just watching. So I'm sure that the mood in the courtroom was also seen that way by the jury.
Paul, do you think the judge stifled the prosecution's case?
I absolutely do, and I don't even think it's something that is up for debate because there were so many issues that you could measure objectively about the judge's attitude and influence in this case. And that goes beyond just the rulings, as we were just talking about earlier. Half of the stuff that didn't come into the case that I think is absolutely relevant, specifically with the background of the defendant and the background of the friends of the defendant that he was with and their affiliations, that I think would have made a difference in interpreting how the evidence was presented. And that's before you start talking about unpacking the rulings where he prevented any of the people that were shot and killed and shot being described even as a victim. These are rulings that really hurt, but one of the rulings that stood out to me was the dismissal of the gun count for a juvenile illegally in possession of a gun, with an argument that he had heard throughout the entirety of the case. But even the timing of that ruling hurt the prosecution because it happened just as they were about to make their closing arguments. And this is before we start talking about the statements and the behavior of the judge in the courtroom, yelling, scowling, and dressing down the prosecution, not to mention his behavior of basically ignoring and not paying attention to the prosecution's closing arguments and then commenting on the state of the evidence for the prosecution as it came in. And this is before we start talking about sitting next to the defendant, showing appreciation and kindness to the defendant in ways that were not objective and not incidental to the facts and evidence coming into the case. All of these things are measured, especially when you're talking about a lay audience making a decision about a murder case. And I think they affected the outcome, and it's a real travesty and a shame, but there's no ambiguity or question as to whether or not it had an influence on this case.
Well, Sue Ann, there might be some room for blame here. I mean, some say the prosecution just had bad facts, while others say the facts were there, they just didn't present it well.
Yeah, in a lot of these cases, and it really highlights how the case of Derek Chauvin was such an exception, and what an exceptional job the state did in that particular case, because a lot of times in high-profile cases that involve culture wars, the prosecution really fails to come out with a conviction. Even on the issue of the gun charge and the curfew charge, the state should have been prepared to argue those things because the state filed those charges. So for them to be at the 11th hour having to present these arguments to the court as to why they put these things in the charging document and then losing those arguments, to me shows that there was a lack of preparation and perhaps a lack of support for the prosecutor that was actually having to do the argument. Because by the time you're at trial, again, they are the ones who brought those charges. So they should be solid on their case law, on their precedent, on why they're charging and what their arguments are going to be to the court to successfully go forward with their charges. And the fact that they were sitting there with their hands like, oh, we don't have the gun charge anymore? Oh, we don't have the curfew charge anymore? What do we do now? They should have been prepared for that, and they really were not. And again, it just underscores how important it is for the state to be prepared in these type of matters.